Welcome to episode 112 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Myers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing writer-director Agustin. He started his career as a screenwriter and director by making a feature film for just $5,000, and now he's about 7 feature films into his career with his most recent film, Badge of Honor, starring Martin Sheen. So stay tuned for that. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. A couple of quick notes. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 112. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide, how to write a professional logline and query letter, how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. It really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. Quick few words about what I'm working on. Obviously, I'm still getting over my Kickstarter campaign. As I record this, the campaign is actually not quite over. I'm recording this on the Monday before this episode is published, so I still have one more day for my Kickstarter campaign. I did hit my goal over this past weekend, so that was a great sense of relief, just knowing that I actually hit my goal and am going to get to keep all the money that I have raised and actually go and make this movie. So that's fantastic. I'm still trying to come up with some ways to kind of hit some stretch goals, so I'll be pushing a little bit. But the bottom line is, as you listen to this, the Kickstarter campaign has successfully ended. So I want to thank everyone who participated in this, who contributed this, who checked it out. I got a ton of emails from people saying stuff like, hey, I don't have any money right now, but I just wish you good luck with it. And those are very much appreciated. It was nice to get those. There were definitely some down times where, contributions were not flowing in. I was feeling badly about the campaign, and getting those emails was very much appreciated. It was a nice pick me up. So, and I certainly understand that not everybody has the luxury of having money that they can contribute to something like this. So thank you to the folks who did just send nice emails in. Those are very much appreciated. I want to thank the people that contributed since the last time I did an update. I thanked all the previous people on the Kickstarter updates, but I just want to thank these people personally. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Lisa Cunningham Gibson. Thank you, Ty Pursley. Thank you, Robert Cartland. Thank you, Jordan Imiola. Thank you, Joey. Thank you, Rick D. Mill. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Glenn McDonald. Thank you, Rick McCormick, Sean McKee, Daniel Gooch, Willetta Thompson, Roy Gordon, Walker Music Group, Ian, Robin Carpenter, Zerog S. Tovar, Frank Lind, Kurt Brindley, Todd Zing, Rajak Stiglick, Will Bermender, David Pisani, Victor Wumet, Ray Shasira, Adam Brooks, Catherine McKellen, Charles Myers, Richa Yadav, Corey New, Mary Griffith, Dave O'Neill, and Nathan Ives. I also want to thank, there was a bunch of people, and these are all the people that just contributed since the time that I did my last Kickstarter update, which was just last Thursday. So these are basically all the people that contributed over this past weekend and really got me over the hump. I got a bunch. I think when I did the last Kickstarter update, I was only at like 8,000 or 9,000, and then, got well over 12,000. I'm standing close to 13,000 now. So, $3,000-$4,000 just in the past, 5 days. That's just a great feeling. So thank you all those people who contributed. And then there was a bunch of people also who increased their pledges. They had contributed earlier and they went and increased those pledges over this last weekend. Julianne Bianchi, Mary Goldman, thank you, Bradley Palmer, David Bashirs, Darren Coyle, Matt Atkinson, David Santo, Andrew Olick, Jason Spellman, Sienna Kay, Adam Strange, Rick Harden, and John Oswald. So thanks to all of those folks. They, as I said, had contributed earlier in the campaign, and then they went and contributed some more money. Again, it was really fantastic the way this thing all came to a close. As I said, I was definitely getting a little worried as time was going on, but that's what everyone said. They said the first week you're going to do pretty well, and then the last week you're going to do well, but those those 2 weeks in the middle are really slow. And I was pretty much, just stuck at about 5,000, in that $5,000 to $6,000 range, almost right up until the last week. And then finally the last week, things really got hopping. I got a few bigger contributions. That was the other interesting thing. I did get some big contributions this past week. I did have a couple people contribute at the executive producer level, and there was at least a couple of those people seemed to just find me on Kickstarter. They wanted to support some projects that were actually going to get made. So once I kind of hit that $10,000 mark, when my goal was $12,000, all of a sudden it was clear, and I still at that point had like 5 days to go. It was clear the project was going to get funded. I had a bunch of people kick in who I don't think I know at all, and I don't think they listen to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. So that's definitely something to keep in mind as you're running through this. I would say don't panic. If you only have half your money going into that final week, you still got a pretty good shot at it, because that's about where I was. I was only about the halfway mark going into that final week. I'm going to do one last podcast update that will kind of be dedicated just to the Kickstarter campaign. I've been releasing these Kickstarter updates throughout the campaign. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to wait probably a month, and then I will do an update in about a month. And the reason I'm doing that is just I want to kind of let things settle down and really get my thoughts. I'm taking notes as I'm going through this process about sort of the things I learned, the things that surprised me. So all that will be rolled up into a specific podcast, and I'll call it something like, the Pinch Kickstarter Roundup or something. And that will be just one last sort of all my thoughts on this Kickstarter process. Just I want to give myself a little bit of space to kind of just mull things over and kind of see how I feel about things. But again, a big thanks to everyone who supported this. I mean, obviously I couldn't have done it without all the people who listen to this podcast, all the people that come and contribute. So thank you very, very much. It's really exciting too. I got a lot of email congratulations when you hit that goal. I hit that $12,000 goal. I got a ton of emails, people just congratulating me. So again, thanks folks for sending those in. I mean, it's just really exciting. I'm going to get to go make this movie. It's going to just get out there and, it's fully funded. And I can't, if you've never been through this process of raising money for a film, it's a grueling process. And whether it be Kickstarter or going to private equity, it's just a grueling process. And once you get over that hump, and there's nothing really fun about it, truthfully. It's like the worst part of the process is asking people for money, trying to raise money, putting your own money into these things. And once you have that money and you basically know you're going to get shot, that's really the most fun, creative time. Because now it's like, that's a huge headache, a huge sort of burden off my shoulders. I know now I can go make this movie. So again, folks, I really do thank everyone who contributed, checked out the campaign, everyone who sent me kind emails. Thank you very, very much for that. And keep an eye out. As I said, probably in about a month, I will do another significant update, kind of how I felt about the campaign. So, the next step is really just starting to get into pre-production and get this thing set up and moving. So I'll definitely be updating everyone through the podcast on that. But right now, I'm just really excited to be funded and moving forward. So the other big thing I'm working on is, I mentioned this before, is this TV pilot script I've been talking about. I put it up on my writers group last week. I got some good notes from them. I met with the producer this morning, got some notes from him. So I've got to take another quick pass at this. Shouldn't be too terribly difficult, but there's definitely some work to be done. The one big note is, I was not alive in 1961, so I certainly don't remember how the world was or anything like that. It's all just kind of research and movies. So that was one big note I got from the writers group and from the producer was, let's try and give this a little bit more sort of that authentic, because it takes place in Southern California, as I said, in 1961. So I got to go back and just start to do some research. So that may take me a week or two before I even dive in to actually start writing some pages. Just do a little research on the time period so that I can really kind of make this thing feel a little more authentic. And that's something, when you're writing a period piece, that's something that is very important. So that's what I'm working on. Let's get into the main segment. Today, I'm interviewing writer-director Agustin. Here is the interview. Welcome, Agustin, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show and talking with me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
So to start out, maybe you can just give us a little bit of background on your career. How did you get started? And maybe talk about some of your first credits and kind of how you got those off the ground, and really anything you want to share. Take us as far back. I'm always curious to hear if, you were one of these film geeks as a kid and shooting, videos as a kid, and did that sort of segue into a professional career? Or really, where did you get your sort of beginnings?
Yeah, I wasn't shooting film as a kid. No, I was born in Cuba. And I don't think it even was a reality to me that I could make movies for a living till very late. But I was always a film buff sort of thing. It's been my favorite art, you know. It just had music and it had fashion and it had pictures and I guess like Eddie Murphy's character in that movie, and he was like, "Yeah, I got a Blockbuster," you know. So I was a film fan for a long time, but it wasn't real to me that it could be a career, really, you know, or even an expression of myself through film. But I did start. I always wrote all my life. You know, I wrote poems, I wrote songs, I wrote short stories. It was kind of a way that I could do it cheaply by myself. Film requires so many people, but writing just requires you and a pencil, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's really, I think, my beginnings. I started writing plays in New York, and I started just producing them and putting them up. I thought I wanted to be an actor early on, and I did a couple of things, and it was fun. Television, a couple of films, and a lot of plays. But it was really always the writing that I kept coming back to. It's where you have the most control, where you have the most fun, I think. And I fancied myself a novelist at some point. I thought I'd end up there. Mm-hmm. But my writing is always so more visual, and I think my palette was informed by film so much that when I discovered that I could write a film, even though not well, my first ones, you know, but when I discovered that I could put something on a piece of paper and people could kind of get it, and we can turn that into living images, it was a monumental shift for me. Like, I just dropped everything. I'm not going to be an attorney. I'm not going to, you know, my parents were going to disown me at that point, but there was no way to go back for me. It's like I can write something, and like a bunch of other like film geeks, like, you know, want to get on board and sort of help me make these words come to life. It's amazing.
Yeah. And so how old were you when you made that transition?
I mean, I wasn't young. It was, you know, maybe 25. It was a good 12, 14 years ago. Like, it was the boxer coming in very late in the game. Because like I said, I didn't see it as that's something that I would do, you know. Mm-hmm. I just thought I'd be like a hippie writer. You know, I figured I have a novel that I'm still 300 pages into. I've never finished. And I'm probably a shitty novelist. But I think, you know, when I made my first two films were like my student films. I didn't go to school for film, you know. Mm-hmm. So I just basically put a little bit of money together, nothing, and you know, I met a DP on an independent shoot, and I was like, "Hey, you want to shoot one of my movies?" And I met an actor and put my friends in it, and I was just basically gonna learn how to make movies. And being as hard-headed as I am, I finished an entire feature. And the truth is, I joined a film. I mean, I don't know how much time we got, but I joined a film club with Paul Calderone, who's a really brilliant actor. And I had gone out on my own with like $500 and shot a short film, you know? And it was like a 10-minute short film. It wasn't even great, but I had a great time, and I put it together, and we had this film group with Paul Calderone had started, and a bunch of New York theater actors, which I fancied myself one, although I'm not at his level. Mm-hmm. We would meet and talk about we want to make films. And I showed my short film, and he was like, "You made this for $500?" And I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Come on, man. If you made this for $500, why don't you just make 10 of these and make a feature for $5,000? And I was like, yeah. Right. So it's like, I probably had no business making a feature at that point or any film, but I was not going to be deterred. And I basically had no money, but, you know, with Paul's idea, I just did a film. And oddly enough, it got accepted to some festivals, and it's on Netflix now. I'm embarrassed to say, because it has no sound mix, no color correction. It was me acting in it, like pressing record and running in front of the camera. But it actually got received well enough where I started getting directing jobs, you know?
Yeah. And that's the film that's on IMDb listed as 3 play?
Yeah, and it's like, the truth is, I don't want to. Nobody should ever see that. Like, that's not my first. That's like it literally is a home video. I remember, and that film is actually responsible for why I don't use my last name. But that's a long story. But I remember we did a festival, and I was talking after. They flew me out to a festival in San Francisco, and the people were asking questions. They were like, "Hi," and I was like, "Well, it's just me, and it's a camera, and I press record and the tripod, and I got my friends." And somebody in the audience was like, "Damn, it's a whole movie. I can make a whole movie." And I was like, yeah, it kind of is a whole movie. But what I learned.
So you had no cinematographer. It was just you setting the camera up on a tripod and literally.
I did have a cinematographer, but it was literally like that. Like it was there was a lot of people. I don't want to diminish the help because a lot of people helped me on that movie. Mm-hmm. Any film that ever gets made is a lot of help. But it was a lot of people like me who were like, let's try to make a movie. I mean, literally every actor in it were my friends. Like my best friend in the movie is my best friend from the Marine Corps, and my girlfriend was really my girlfriend. And it was just so. When I finished it, I was so proud that I edited that movie on 2 VCRs, tape to tape. Like it was crazy. And I went down to Miami when I realized I had to do a digital version, and I was sneaking to this film school, I won't say which one, at night to edit on it wasn't the Avid back then, it was another thing that they had that they were using. And halfway through it, I had a friend who let me sneak into the film program school at night. And I remember that halfway through editing the digital version, a professor said, "Whose project is this?" And nobody knew, and he erased it. So I had to start again with like a hard drive that I would sneak into the dorm every night, and it was such a learn. I learned what not to do, you know, and that. Mm-hmm. And I'm proud of it. I just wish nobody ever sees it, to be honest.
Yeah. You know, one thing that I noticed, I did a movie a few years ago, and one of the pieces of advice I got was put some very attractive, scantily clad women on the box cover, and it will sell a certain number of units. And I noticed your film has 2 attractive, scantily clad women. Was that something you actually did on purpose, or just played into the actual story?
No, man. Those were my girlfriends for real. Like, it was just, the story was weird because you know, my parents are going to disown me again. I just got them to like me after producing Lady in Number 6. But I was dating 2 girls at the same time, and it was kind of like everybody thought it was like, oh man, you're having porno life, right? And I'm like, not really, dude. It's kind of like a pain in the butt, really, you know. So I wanted to make a story about that. But yeah, they were just my girlfriends, and I think the distributors probably thought about putting scantily. The original title for that was Love Equals ME Cubed. L equals MEQ. Like this whole high concept thing I had of like love is not supposed to be defined by any way. My girlfriends were gay at the time, and I didn't want them to be judged. And I was like, you know, love is relative. It's me to the third pop. I had all this young hippie New York ideas. And then the distributor's like, no, we'll make it sexy. 2 hot chicks and a 3-play because you're threesome. And I was like, hey, you're going to pay me for my movie? I literally made 10 times what I spent on that thing. So I thought it was a huge success. Looking back, I probably should have burned it.
Yeah. Believe me, if you made 10 times what you spent, that is a huch success. Very few filmmakers can say that.
I mean, I spent very little, but I did. Literally, I think I spent like $5,000 on the movie. And I mean, I probably shouldn't even be saying this, but I think we got like $50,000. Okay. I was like, holy cow, I can go buy a camera now and make another one.
Yeah. And so you're saying as your career went along, that was sort of the first thing. And from that movie, other people hired you to direct stuff and write stuff.
Well, I mean, really from that movie, I learned that what not to do, really. I learned like, hey, you know, get a real camera. I talked to the guy who was my DP on that. We made another one for like 10 grand, Carlito's Angels, which we were just spoofing Charlie's Angels. It was my first 2 were like that. They were right back to back. I wasn't really a filmmaker yet, although filmmaker's kind of a state of mind. You can talk that way. But I didn't have the skills to be a filmmaker. But I had the desire. And so we made 2 films back to back that were really just us playing around. And again, we were lucky because it was like Charlie's Angels was coming out, and I made this Carlito's Angels for like $10,000 out of the $50,000, whatever, and got some studio in New Jersey to release it. And so at Walmart, it was like Charlie's Angels and Carlito's Angels. It was like, I was like, how did that happen? And so I think that I learned enough lessons to start peddling my wares as a director. I really started wanting to learn. And I did some videos and a lot of commercials. There's a gentleman who I still collaborate with a lot, a real visionary called Raul Alarcon, who's like a media mogul, who hired me to do all the commercials for his radio stations. He kind of gave my first professional shot. And my first commercial I shot with him, I shot on 35 millimeter. I just wanted to be a filmmaker. Even though I didn't have to, I could have done it on digital. And I learned a lot there. And then one of his DJs, I made a comedy with him, which is a Spanish language comedy, in 2005, 4 or something like that, which went theatrical. Again, it was me wanting to just do it. I shot on 35 millimeter with a $500,000 budget. But the movie actually ended up grossing like crazy numbers. You know, we were on the front page of Variety. We beat, per screen, we were only in like 10 screens, but we beat Doom that year. We beat Zorro. It got all this press. And then they were like, hey, what do you want to do next? And I went off and made Falling Awake, which is really my first feature. Wrote it, directed. Very proud of that. And I think I got a chance to make a TV show with Raul again that I'm very proud of. And, you know, you're constantly learning as an artist. I definitely don't feel like I'm where I want to be, but I feel like now I can call myself a director, like, without bowing my head.
So let's dig into Badge of Honor for a minute. That's your latest film. You co-wrote it and directed it as well. Yeah. Maybe to start out, you can give us a quick pitch of it or a logline for the film.
I mean, the film came to me through Anthony Thorne. It had Martin Sheen attached, so I was instantly attracted to the fact that he was attached. And I know I'm giving you a long answer to the logline, but you know, it was based on his father's life, true story. His father was a cop who sort of had gone astray, and that really attracted me. And that's really what it was. It was this, to get a chance to tell this character story of this cop who maybe started out wanting to do good, but ended up doing really bad. And when it started dealing with the subject matter of a Latino kid getting shot, and so appropriate at the time, it was just the tip of this whole thing that's a big issue now, right? I think that's what really attracted me, the fact that we can delve into this character and talk about both sides of the issue. Like, there's good cops in this movie trying to do the right thing, and there's this bad cop who really doesn't see himself as a bad cop. You know, he thinks he's out there protecting us from the bad guys, but he's sort of been in the shit so long, I don't know if I can say that, and he starts to smell like it, right? And that really attracted me, the fact that we could delve into that psychology, how a cop goes bad, you know?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the script. So you're saying this guy had written a script, gotten Martin Sheen attached, and he came with you. What condition was the script in? Because ultimately you did some rewriting on the script, correct?
Yeah. I don't want to talk about conditions because, you know, that kind of stuff is subjective. I had a lot of ideas for the script, and Anthony was really receptive to the ideas. So we kind of locked ourselves up in an apartment in Hollywood. I mean, totally, you know, literally for like 3 weeks, and just rewrote the whole thing. Because it did have some issues, I think. You know, it had things in it that I didn't want to direct, you know. And I think what happened to Anthony and why we responded to this version of the script is because he wanted it to be a character study about his dad, but he had been peddling it around Hollywood, you know, trying to get it sold. And he got the usual comments of like, more action, more this, more that. And so there was a lot of action in it that I didn't think, you know, I just thought was kind of mindless and stuff. And when I mentioned it to him, he's like, yeah, man, I agree. I did those changes because such and such asked me to do it, or such and such producer said I needed a crash every 10 minutes, but that's not what I want. And they didn't give me the money anyway. So let's do this. And then, you know, I had some kind of cool producers, Phil Goldfine and Tim Marlowe and his dad. And they said, go ahead, man, you know, make the movie you want to make. And so it's rare to get that chance, you know? And
yeah. So how did he get Martin Sheen attached to the script? Do you have any insight on that?
I don't have any insight on it. I know that Martin was attached, and that was my draw. I was like, you know, I got to work with the guy from Apocalypse Now, right? It's Martin Sheen. And I was, to be honest, I was a little bit scared because we made so many changes on the script that I'm like, what if Martin hates this shit? What if he like loves the other one? But he dug it a lot. He called me himself and, you know, supported the vision. And so I don't know how I think he was also drawn to the fact, I don't know how the whole process of attaching him was, but when I spoke to him, what he was drawn to was that the female cop trying to do the right thing, you know, like she goes against the whole precinct to still do what she has to do, even if she's ostracized, and the struggle of this cop. And he also felt like his character, you know, he had kind of done it before, police captain, but he felt like his character was a little implicit in the crime just by sort of turning a blind eye, and he wanted to explore that. So I think that's what attracted him, and I'm glad it did, because it was a thrill working with him.
Yeah. So take us through this process. You kind of mentioned it just a moment ago, but so now you guys, you've been in this apartment for 3 weeks rewriting the script. What did you then do after that to actually go and start to get these other producers interested then and actually start to get the money involved, to get the money attached?
Well, I was lucky in the sense that the producers were already interested, I think, in a film. I want to say a film with me, but maybe also a film with Martin more than with me. And I am friendly with Tim and his father, and Phil is my partner and some stuff. So I think they backed the project before I went into that apartment. They were like, let's make this movie.
Okay.
And I was like, well, I want to rewrite it, and these are the changes, and they were like, go ahead, you know. And so they kind of gave me a little bit of a green light to go write it. It's always a chance that they don't like your rewrite, but the money was there before I started the rewrite. And then, of course, it's still hard. You got to make it for very little money, and you got to cast the rest of the thing. But it wasn't like I wrote a script and then I went to peddle the script. That's not what happened on this one. It's happened on other ones, but not on this one.
Yeah, yeah. So before we started the interview, you had mentioned how proud you were of the cast that you had. Maybe we can just talk about that a little bit, the casting process and getting actors involved. And a lot of what you're talking about, you know, you don't have $100 million to make the movie, so you've got to do some creative casting. Maybe talk about how did you get Mina involved and some of the other casts that you worked with. How did you go through that process?
Yeah. Well, like I said, Martin came with the project, and I'd like to sit here and tell you that everybody was dying to work with this young director that did Carlito's Angels. But I think more likely they probably liked the script and they wanted to work in the film with Martin. There was another female attached to the lead, and great actress as well. But I believe she got pregnant, and the part opened up. And then when I heard that Mina was available and interested, to me that was amazing. She's really a great movie star, to be honest. And so I talked to her. We met over lunch about the script. And I think the first time I met her, she came to a screening of a documentary I produced. But we went and we talked about the script, and she was so sharp about it, and the research she wanted to do and the questions that she asked. And I kind of knew that she was the right person for it right away. There was no casting for Mina, And I was just lucky to have her. And Patrick Muldoon was also involved in the process from the beginning. And, he's a great actor as well. And the biggest part that was hardest to cast was Mike and David, because we didn't have those guys. We sort of had everybody else in the cast. Natasha was great, and Hilary Duff was great. But I didn't have a David and a Mike. And it was, I think, also because we were Anthony's dad. They really had to be like, who do you want for this guy? Oh, I want, Sean Penn to play this guy. But I don't know that Sean Penn was available. But when I met Lachlan, when I met Lachlan Monroe in Canada, he's known for comedy, right? Like he's White Chicks and, Scream and these movies. And I was like, but like the guy he came ready. Like he had a friend who was an undercover narcotics guy. He took me with him for, like the real deal going on the cover. He's like, I want to really get ugly on here and really go for it. And I think, I'm really proud of Locke. Like he went so deep on it and he really took chances with the character. And so for me, it was there was only one hard part of casting, but the lead guys were easy, and then we got the call that Jesse was interested, and Jesse Bradford, I saw him in Swim Fan. He was great in that movie. And, when I started really looking into Lachlan's work, he was in Unforgiven, with Clint Eastwood, and he came so prepared and he had so many great ideas that he really convinced me that he was going to knock it out the park, which he did. So those lead guys came together fairly easily, and I think a testament maybe to the script and to the whole project.
Can you walk us through, give us some steps? Because I get emails from screenwriters saying, well, how could I approach this actor or that actor? And I think, obviously, the stage at your career is probably different than a lot of the people who are emailing me. And just like what you mentioned, hey, a documentary you produced, Mina happened to show up to that. But I wonder if you can walk us through the process of how do you get a script to someone like Mina? How do you even get that initial spark? Did you hire a casting director and the casting director went out to their agent, or was it through personal contacts? Just give us a little sort of insight onto how to approach actors like that.
Well, I'm not going to give you too much insight because that's like secret sauce in Hollywood. No, but I think you're right. I think a lot of people hire a casting director. If you're lucky enough to have a casting director respond to your script, there's I got to tell you, casting director is an art form. Those people a lot of young producers and even old producers just really downplay the job of the casting director. But I would say take a note from Ridley Scott, who says he just hires really great actors and really great casting people, and then he can direct. I have never had the chance to do that, but it's always in the back of my mind. It's what I want to do. So if you can get a casting director to do that, and she can reach out to the actors, I think that's the ideal way. but extrapolating on that, what a casting director does is they have a credibility and they have personal relations. So it is ultimately about personal relations, because you can send the script to an agency and I'm sure somebody can read it. I remember a story when I first started, when they were like, an agent had Copland in his desk drawer for 5 years, and then he wanted to sign Stallone, and he pulled it out and said, "Look, Stallone, this is what you should be doing. And if you're at my agency, it would be this." And I've heard that as a story. I don't know if it's true, but apparently Stallone liked it and read it, and you know, so I'm sure that does happen. But for most of the part, I think you got to try to cultivate a relationship with actors. You know, you have to write a good script, because if you're lucky enough to get in the door, you want to put your best foot forward. So it's all about it really is all about the script.
Yeah.
But when you get it in the door, you got to have something to show. And then I think you have to be able to get people to take a chance and read for you. Because an agent's job is to protect their talent from 1,000 scripts that they're getting every day. So how do you get them to read yours? You know, that's not really the secret sauce. But the answer is, yeah, if you can have a personal relationship to someone, you know, in this case, I really think the anchor for our film was Martin. And I mean, to me, I got to be thankful to him, you know, because he was really the anchor. He believed in the script, even from the first iteration, and then he believed in my rewrite. And then, you know, I remember thinking that he was going to hate the rewrite and he would have tons of notes. And I got a call that his agent's calling, like, "Martin wants to talk to you." And I'm like, "Oh shit, like Mr. Sheen's going to scream at me," you know? And he gets on the phone and he's like, "Hey kid, you know, I read the script. I like your vision. I see what you're trying to do. I know you don't got a lot of money. I'm going to bring my own wardrobe. I'm going to support you." Like, he's an artist, you know? And so getting somebody like that to sort of buy in, it's kind of like the Good Will Hunting story, right? These two great actors, great writers, got a director to buy in and got Robin Williams to buy in, and this thing becomes so amazing. Not that my film is anything like Good Will Hunting, but
yeah. No, I understand. And you just said he was the anchor, and I think that's a very valid point. Is when other actors hear that an actor of his status is involved in a project, it makes your project just seem much more, you know, it gives it some cachet, and then they become more interested, and it goes that script goes to the top of the pile.
I think so. I really think so. You know, all thanks to the producers for believing in it, and for Anthony to bring in the story and writing the first script and getting it to Martin. You know, maybe you should interview him, see how he got it to Martin.
Yeah, no kidding.
But once Martin says, "Okay, I believe in you, crazy kids," you know, then I think other people go, "Well, damn, if Martin Sheen believes in this, then there's got to be something to it." You know, at least we know Agustin's not going to bunt. He's going to try to hit it out the fences. He might strike out, but he's going to really swing, you know?
So how can people see Badge of Honor? Do you know the release schedule, when it's going to be video on demand, theatrical? Do you know anything about that?
I don't. I really don't know the exacts of it, man. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I've been out of the loop with that. I know that I think it's coming out February 2nd.
Okay.
I think that's what I've heard. I don't know the exacts of where or what. Yeah. I got another film coming out tonight that I'm actually running from here to get shaved and go to the premiere of.
Oh, okay. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, and that's coming out February 5th. But it's not as good as Badge of Honor. No, Badge of Honor is really. I'm really proud of Badge, man. I gotta say.
Yeah. Perfect. And I'd just like to wrap up the interviews by asking, how can people follow along with what you're doing? If you're on Twitter, mention your Twitter handle. You know, anything you're comfortable sharing, Facebook, a blog, a website, anything. And I'll put it in the show notes so people can just kind of keep up with what you're doing.
I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook. I just don't think I'm that cool. I don't know what the hell I would say. I just recently joined this thing called Group Muse, which is like musicians come to your house to play live classical music. So it kind of forces you to start a Facebook account, but I don't really update it or anything. I know I should, right? I should, because I know so many great artists do it, and they have so many great things on there. So maybe I'll start a Twitter, or I just don't know what I would say, man.
No, there's no need. Yeah, no shame in that. I mean, time is finite, so we only have so much time to do stuff. So, Well, Agustin, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to me. Very inspirational story. You know, I really tell people to just go out and do it and make a film for $5,000. I think that's really the best thing anybody can be doing who wants to get in this career. So your story is inspirational to us.
Well, thanks, man. I mean, look, sometimes I think about, like, I should have really waited and have my first film be this amazing opus. But it's kind of not my personality, and I would have probably I mean, I just had to jump in, and I'm glad I did, because those first 2 films are definitely bad. But I would have never. I mean, there's nothing. I couldn't have learned more in film school than I learned from like shooting those films in 2 months and making every mistake possible. You know,
Yeah.
It was amazing to make all those mistakes and bloody your knees and get up and then sell the freaking film. It's like, it's amazing. Now, the bad part is, yeah, somebody might judge me on that film, might see it, but it's okay because they can see the next one and see the growth. And I'm proud of everything I did. It's all part of the process.
Yeah, absolutely is. I'm going to go check it out on Netflix tonight.
Don't block that one.
All right. Thanks, man. We'll talk to you later. Good luck with this film.
Hey, thank you, man. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Just want to mention 2 things I'm doing at Selling Your Screenplay to help screenwriters find producers who are looking for material. First, I've created a monthly newsletter that will be sent directly to producers. Every member of SYS Select can submit 1 logline per newsletter. I went and I emailed my large database of producers and asked them if they would like to receive pitches from screenwriters at Selling Your Screenplay. So far, I have well over 200 producers who have signed up to receive this newsletter. These producers are hungry for material and happy to read scripts from new writers. So if you want to participate in the pitch newsletter and get your script into the hands of lots of producers, sign up at sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. And secondly, I've partnered with one of the premier paid screenwriting lead sites so I can syndicate their leads to SYS Select members. There are lots of great paid leads coming in every week from this partner. Recently, we've been getting 10 to 12 high quality paid screenwriting leads per week. These are producers and production companies who are actively looking to buy material from or hire a screenwriter for a specific project. If you sign up at SYS Select, you'll get these leads emailed directly to you several times per week. These emails include direct contact information with the producers. These leads run the gamut from production companies looking for a specific type of spec script to producers looking to hire a screenwriter to write up one of their own ideas. There's producers looking for shorts, feature films, producers looking for TV and web series pilots. It's a huge array of different types of projects that these producers are looking for. And these leads are exclusive to our partner, obviously, who is creating them, and the SYS Select members. To sign up, go to sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. Also, I recently set up a success stories page for people who have had success through the various SYS Select services. So if you want to check that out, please do go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/success. Again, that's the success page, and it's sellingyourscreenplay.com/success. So in next week's episode, I'm going to be interviewing writer and producer Gabriele Campisi. He just did a horror movie called Little Dead Riding Hood. He's been working in the industry for many, many years in a variety of capacities, from, writer, director early on in his career, just to being, to getting into more of the business side and raising money and financing. And then he's back with this one as just a writer on this most recent project. So he's got a lot of great information to share. And as I said, covers a lot of sort of the different areas of filmmaking. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. So to wrap things up, I just want to touch on a few things from today's interview with Agustin. I mean, I've talked about this often, but I love his can-do attitude, just going out there and getting it done, making a $5,000 feature film. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Good things can happen if you finish stuff and push them out into the world. But nothing can happen if you don't do anything. So really listen to what he said. I mean, all these problems he's talking about, editing at a film school, having his cut deleted and people not, having to start over, and just all the problems. Those are the problems of low budget filmmaking. You don't have everything you don't have a lot of money. So you don't just have all of these, assets ready to go. And that's the sort of the process of fighting through those. It is painful at times. And even with a budget of what I'm going to be doing with my own film, The Pinch, even with a budget, far greater than $5,000, there's still going to be a lot of that. There's a lot of little problems that come up. You just have to have that can-do attitude. You're just going to get it done. You dig in and you just say, I'm going to get this done no matter what. And you slowly work through it. It's a process. As I said, it can be painful, but it can also be very, very creatively fulfilling. And that's one thing that I really didn't understand when I got into the industry. Now that I've sold a few scripts, had a few scripts get produced, when you sell a script and it goes to the producers and the directors and they go and they start rewriting it, they don't really consider the original writer that much, and they're much more concerned with their own notes and their own ideas, and that's totally fine because they're the ones who raise the money. But for the most part, the smaller budget projects that I've worked on have been much more creatively fulfilling as an artist. And I think that's something to really consider. You're not going to get the chance if you're able to sell. That's kind of the trade-off. You run into these things like what Augustine is talking about. If you don't have a lot of money and you're producing yourself, you have the creative freedom to do what you want, but you don't have a lot of the money to, facilitate a lot of, to compensate for a lot of the problems that you run into. But you do get this creative fulfillment, and you get to make the creative choices that you want to make. So hopefully I'm taking my own advice with my film, The Pinch, and just getting out there and getting some stuff done. Of course, I'm going to be chronicling that through the podcast. So hopefully people can kind of come along for the ride. And I hope it inspires people. I hope interviews like what I just did with Augustine, I hope that really inspires people just to hear. There's a guy, he didn't know anybody in the industry. He just went out there and he made a $5,000 movie, and that slowly got his career going. And now, 7, 8 feature films later, he's directing a movie with Martin Sheen. So it all started with that $5,000 movie, and nobody hired him to do it. No one told him to do it. He just went out on his own and made it happen. So hopefully people listening to this podcast can really take that lesson to heart and get out there and kind of make things happen for yourself. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you for listening.